Yesterday I had a chance to play All for One Regime Diabolique, my favorite games, one of my favorite Ubiquity-powered games, one of my favorite games from AAA's games. And I got to do it as a player, which is cool. And it was part of our ongoing All for One Regime Diabolique Lights in Darkness campaign. But this was the first solo session for my character, Martin, which was cool, very cool. And I've watched the video. It's not on my channel. It's on Francois Letard's channel, JDRD30. You can watch it there. I've watched it, and I noticed that my experience of the game, which was a very immersive experience, I'll talk about that in a minute, doesn't translate very well to video. And this is not really a surprise, because much of my own experience as a role player tends to be internal. I'm quite willing to, add to my dialogue with facial expression and body language, but in Hangouts a lot of this is muted, so there's much more to the experience of this game than appears in the spoken dialogue of the game, which is a fun thing for people who enjoy RPG theory to think about and talk about. But so I plan in the future to release a video of the live session, which is fully annotated and, including commentary about what I was experiencing, in my own head and in my imagination of the scene. But I do want to talk about, not really a recap, it's more of a commentary video again. I want to talk about why that happened, why this particular one was so immersive. Rather than engaging, rather than being caught up in the events and the banter, right? There was no one to banter with other than the Game Master. What was it that made this particular thing so immersive? And it comes back to something I talk about on the channel a lot, which was choice. Right off the bat, Francois, in the role of the Game Master, put me, operating Martin, in between these opposing forces. Now, Martin is a character who has the motivation of revenge, who has the archetype of noble. He's separated from people. He's separated by his blood in a couple of different social levels, and he's separated by this revenge. He doesn't know who to trust. He doesn't really know who in the crowd is out to get him. He has the flaw of hunted. So all of those things are happening in the scene. He knows he's being hunted. He's actually being hunted, and he's surrounded by friends and people who might be friends and people who might be enemies, which puts me in the driver's seat of a character who is walking that fine line of paranoia and alertness, which began the descent into immersion. And then very interesting choices which pull on that strong theme of focusing on revenge, focusing on duty, right? Focusing on his role as a musketeer versus his role as the once and future head of his family, all these sorts of things, and what's really going on. And the other fun thing was that we had very brief, very sharp, out-of-character moments, which are then brushed away and strongly put into very overt, very explicit in-character moments. And we did this by doing a lot of flashbacks and then reverting to the present day for some commentary, for some banter with some NPCs, and then back, and then piece by piece, step by step, this mystery is revealed. And for me, the player, this is all discovery of something that happened to the character in the past, built very much on how I built the character. And it's also, from an outside perspective, very much what it's like to actually communicate with Martin. So many secrets, so many things left unsaid, so many things not revealed, so much reluctance to share and open up. So the whole thing, the whole scenario or session, like 90% of it is taken up as a conversation between Briscourt and Martin, where Briscourt is prying these details out. And of course, as the player, I couldn't give him those details if I wanted to, because I don't know them yet, because they're being revealed to me and discovered and shaped and defined by me asynchronously, out of order in time. And so I'm asked a question and I answer with no detail. And then we have a flashback and we discover what those details are. These things are sometimes left unsaid and sometimes revealed. And Briscourt has to try harder and harder and harder to pry these things out. Reading letters over Martin's shoulder, probing questions and this sort of thing. And we're left wondering, how much of the story does Briscourt get? How much of the story does Martin realize he's sharing and not sharing? Very engaging for me as the player, and the constant shifting of focus between the now and the past keeps me on my toes, things I have to remember. And what was going on at this period, what was going on around the time that we visited Stull in the very first episodes, what was going on just before we went to Strasbourg, what was going on just before he was locked up in the Bastille, all these things. And it was great fun. An excellent way to spark that descent down into character, where the only thing that's occupying my mind is the character's perspective. So much so that losing track of time and not really aware of what I'm saying and what I'm merely imagining. So I think it should be interesting when I do share my inner experience of what that game session was compared to what is actually just said. And so I'm very thankful to have had the opportunity to play that game. The events of the game, in form of a recap, were simply that Martin is awakened by Briscourt knocking on his door and bringing in a letter that was left by a mysterious lady. Of course, Briscourt wants to know what's in the letter, and Martin, of course, doesn't want to share it with him. So there's a little bit of teasing banter about that, but then Martin does open the letter, and this begins this long sequence of conversation and memory where a relationship of friendship and discovery with the wife of a local baker is revealed scene by scene over the whole course of time that we have played our campaign. Little snippets that fit in really well with things that were really going on, and including Martin's embroilment in a suspicious crime, which may or may not contribute to why he went to the Bastille for my last episode as the GM. So, very cool. We discover this woman, a peasant woman, a person of low birth, someone not of Martin's real status, but someone who's much closer to the status to which he's pretending right now as a musketeer. She's educated, she can read, she has a quick and clever mind, and she's in a terrible abusive relationship. And Martin knows that if he gets involved, if he steps in to help resolve this situation, she'll be left penniless, destitute. She might be harmed by his family. Of course, the church won't back him up in this time period. Socially, she'll be a pariah. He'll be in trouble. There's nothing good can come of interfering. But at the same time, he cannot simply say nothing. And so these tensions start to arise. And what do observers believe about the relationship between this musketeer and this married woman? And on we go, closer and closer and closer and closer, till finally people feel that there must be some sort of romantic relationship between them, which there isn't, and things come to a head with the husband. When we finally focus purely on the present, we discover the husband murdered. We discover Martin accused of the murder. We discover the wife is missing. And the Cardinal's guards are seeking to arrest Martin. What are we going to do? And this is where things get turned up to an even higher degree, a hotter temperature. This is where we discover a cousin of Martin has been behind much, if not all, of this, and has captured the wife of the baker's wife, and puts Martin squarely on the horns of a dilemma, right? Do you battle me? Do you save her? Giving me a very, very difficult choice, both as a person and as a player, and as a character. You want to know what the choice was? Watch the game.